Hey, everybody, and welcome to this deep dive
Yeah.
into Gabe Pelzer's The Privilege of Youth.
Okay.
Now, you're probably familiar with Pelzer's harrowing story from a child called It,
Mm-hmm.
where he detailed his incredible survival of childhood abuse.
Right.
But in The Privilege of Youth, we get to follow Pelzer into his teenage years.
Okay.
After he's escaped that horrific situation.
Right.
So we're going to explore how he navigated the world outside that trauma,
Mm-hmm.
discovering friendships,
Yep.
mentors,
Yeah.
and ultimately grappling with the complexities of forgiveness.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of people might assume that once a teenager escapes a situation like that,
Right.
it's all uphill from there.
Yeah.
But Peltzer's experience really highlights just how complicated that transition can be.
Right.
Imagine suddenly having freedom,
Yeah.
but feeling completely lost
Mm.
when it comes to basic things like
Yeah.
friendships
Mhm.
and processing emotions.
Yeah.
That's the reality Peltzer faced.
That's such a great point. And you
Yeah.
can really see that contrast in the book.
Yeah.
This newfound freedom alongside feeling like an outsider,
Yeah.
trying to figure out all these things
Right.
that most teenagers take for granted.
Yes, and the book really dives into that without sugarcoating anything.
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledges the deep, lasting scars left by abuse while focusing on Peltzer's incredible growth through it all.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is that the book doesn't dwell on the past trauma,
Right.
but instead uses it as a foundation
Yeah.
for exploring his journey of healing and self-discovery.
One of the things that struck me
Yeah.
was how much the book emphasizes Pelzer experiencing genuine friendship for the
Mhm.
first time. These
Yeah.
are things we might consider typical teenage experiences,
Yeah.
riding bikes, playing
Mm.
sports.
Right.
But for him,
Mm-hmm.
they were profound revelations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like he's discovering a whole new dimension of human connection. And you see him grappling with concepts like trust and loyalty.
Right.
What's so powerful is how the acceptance of his friends helps him begin to feel like he belongs somewhere.
Hmm.
And, you know, this isn't just a heartwarming anecdote.
Okay.
There's a strong neuroscientific basis for this.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, you see, trauma can disrupt the brain's development,
Okay.
especially in areas related to social bonding and emotional regulation, positive social experiences,
Yeah.
like the kind Peltzer starts having with his friends, can actually help to rewire the brain.
Oh, wow.
This means that by engaging in these positive interactions,
Yeah.
the brain can start to heal and form new, healthier pathways.
Right.
Think of it like strengthening a muscle that's been weakened.
Wow, so those friendships weren't just fun, they were actually playing a crucial role in his recovery.
Absolutely.
It makes you realize how important those connections are, especially for someone who's gone through trauma.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it's never a straightforward path.
Yeah.
Peltzer still wrestled with insecurity and opening up fully to his friends.
Mm.
It really highlights that recovery isn't this linear progression,
Mm-hmm.
but rather a journey with its own unique twists and turns.
I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
Regardless of their experiences, it's a good reminder that healing takes time
Yeah,
and that it's okay to have setbacks along the way.
right.
And as we see in the book,
Hmm.
these friendships were just one piece of the support system that helped Pelzer during this time.
That's a great segue,
Okay.
because in addition to his friends,
Yeah.
Peltzer had some incredible mentors who played a huge role in his life.
Right.
Foster parents,
Yeah.
teachers, people in the community who really stepped up for him.
And this reminds me of something you mentioned earlier
Okay.
about brain rewiring.
Yeah.
Isn't there research that
Yeah.
shows how important having stable,
Right.
supportive adults is for young people,
Yes.
especially those facing adversity?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Studies have consistently shown that having even one reliable,
Mhm.
caring adult in a young person's life
Yeah.
can act as a buffer against the negative effects of trauma.
Okay.
And you see this play out beautifully in the book,
Yeah.
particularly with Peltzer's foster father.
Yes, I loved that part.
Yeah.
Especially how his foster father went beyond emotional support
Right.
and instilled in him a strong work ethic,
Mhm.
giving him practical guidance that would equip him for life after foster care.
It's such a great illustration of how these mentors weren't just there to make him feel good.
Right.
They were giving him the tools to build a future.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the profound impact that these types of relationships can have on shaping a young person's trajectory.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating how Pelzer weaves these powerful life lessons throughout the book.
Yeah.
It's like he's taken years of hard-won wisdom
Right.
and distilled them into these key takeaways that
Yeah.
can resonate with anyone, even if you haven't faced the same kind of adversity. Absolutely. One of the most powerful themes is this idea of forgiveness.
Right.
And you might be thinking, well, of course he needs to forgive.
Right.
How could he move on otherwise?
Yeah.
But Pelzer doesn't present forgiveness as this simple, easy thing.
Right. He doesn't condone what happened to him,
Right.
but there's this understanding that holding on to anger and resentment was only hurting him.
The powerful shift in perspective. He
Mm-hmm.
actually talks about forgiveness being like setting himself free
Yeah.
from this heavy burden he was carrying.
Right.
He had to let go of that anger to truly heal and move forward.
He has this amazing quote in the book.
Yeah,
Something like, forgiveness isn't saying what happened was okay.
right.
It's about choosing not to let the past control your present.
That's spot on. And I think a lot of us, even
Yeah.
if we haven't experienced trauma on that level,
Right.
can relate to that.
Yeah.
Holding on to anger, even towards smaller injustices, can really weigh you down.
It's so true. And forgiveness is just one piece of the puzzle.
Pelzer also talks a lot about the importance of hard work.
Right.
It wasn't just something his foster father emphasized.
Yeah.
It became a core part of his identity.
And this is where it gets really interesting psychologically speaking.
Okay.
Because for Pelzer, hard work wasn't just about achieving success.
Hmm.
It was about regaining a sense of control and self-worth.
Right.
Remember, his abuser often used chores and tasks
Yeah.
as a form of punishment and manipulation.
You're right. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So by embracing hard work on his own terms,
Mm-hmm.
he's essentially reclaiming that part of his life,
Right.
turning it into something positive.
Exactly. It's a brilliant example of how our brains can reinterpret experiences
Yeah.
and create new meanings.
Right.
And, it's fascinating how Pelzer balances these heavier themes
Mhm.
with a genuine sense of gratitude.
You're right. Even amidst all the hardship,
Yeah.
he never loses sight of the people who helped him along the way. He talks about those small acts of kindness, like a warm meal from a neighbor or a teacher who believed in him.
It speaks to this incredible resilience of the human spirit,
Yeah.
this ability to find light even in the darkest of places.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we can all cultivate in our own lives.
Uh-huh.
By consciously focusing on what we're grateful for, even small things, we can actually rewire our brains to be
Wow.
more positive and resilient.
Isn't that linked to the helper's high idea we talked about earlier?
Exactly. When we focus on gratitude and helping others,
Yeah.
it triggers the release of those feel-good chemicals in our brains, making us feel happier and more connected.
So Peltzer's story isn't just about his own healing. It's almost like a blueprint for how we can all find strength in adversity.
I love that it's like he's saying, here's what I've learned, and this is how you can apply it in your own life,
Right.
no matter what challenges you're facing.
But one thing that really struck me was how, even with all these positive changes,
Yeah.
Peltzer still struggled with his sense of identity and belonging.
And I think that's something that's so important to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma, especially childhood trauma, can have a lasting impact on how we see ourselves.
Right.
It can create these feelings of unworthiness
Yeah.
and fear of rejection, even when we're surrounded by loving and supportive people.
I remember this scene in the book where he's with his friends
Yeah.
and they're all having fun, but he still feels this deep sense of isolation.
Right.
Like he's observing from the outside.
It's that feeling of not truly belonging,
Yeah.
of being different somehow.
Right.
And it's so common for people who have experienced trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains are constantly on high alert, scanning for danger, even when there's none present.
And that can make it hard to form lasting connections, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're always afraid of being hurt or rejected.
And it can lead to these self-sabotaging behaviors,
Uh-huh.
like pushing people away or withdrawing from relationships.
It's almost like a defense mechanism, like you're trying to protect yourself before anyone else can hurt you.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's something Pelzer wrestles with throughout the book.
And I think it's so important that he doesn't shy away from showing that
Right.
it would be easy to present this idealized version of recovery.
Yeah.
But he's honest about the fact that it's an ongoing process full of ups and downs.
Right. And it's not about instantly erasing all the pain and insecurities.
Right.
It's about learning to manage those feelings
Mm-hmm.
and slowly build a stronger sense of self.
And that leads to one of the most powerful moments in the book,
Right.
where Peltzer consciously chooses to see himself as a survivor, not a victim.
That shift in mindset is everything.
Right.
It's about reclaiming your narrative and focusing on your own agency,
Yeah.
even in the face of incredibly difficult circumstances.
And it's not about ignoring the past or pretending it didn't happen.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the impact it's had
Right.
while refusing to let it define you.
It's such an empowering message.
Yeah.
And it's something that resonates far beyond Pelzer's individual story.
Right.
It's a message that can inspire anyone who's facing challenges, whether it's trauma loss or any other kind of adversity.
It's like he's saying, look, you're not alone in this. We all have the potential to rise above our challenges and create a meaningful life.
Right.
You know, one thing that really struck me, and this ties back to his sense of belonging,
Okay.
was how Pelzer highlights the importance of community.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have made it through those tough teenage years
Right.
without the support network he found in his new town.
It's such a crucial point.
Right.
And it's something we often overlook in individualistic cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are social creatures.
Yeah.
We're wired for connection.
Right.
And especially after experiencing trauma, having a strong community can be incredibly healing.
Right. And that community doesn't have to look any one specific way. It might be a close group of friends, a family, a faith community, or even an online group of people with shared interests.
Right.
The key is finding those spaces
Yeah,
where you feel seen, heard, and accepted.
absolutely. It's about feeling like you belong somewhere,
Yeah.
that you're not navigating this crazy world alone.
Right.
And, thinking about Pelzer's story
Mm-hmm.
and all the people who helped him along the way, it makes me think about the ripple effect of kindness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that helper's high we discussed?
Oh, yeah, I love that concept.
Right.
Well, Pelzer's story might inspire you,
Uh-huh.
the listener, to be that positive force in someone else's life.
Right.
You never know how a small act of kindness,
Yeah.
a listening ear, or a word of encouragement
Right.
can impact another person's journey.
I love that it's like this full circle moment.
Yeah.
We've explored how Pelzer benefited from the kindness of others,
Mm-hmm.
and now his story has the potential to inspire that same kindness in our listeners.
Exactly. It speaks to the interconnected nature of our lives and how we all have the power to make a difference, big or small.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into The Privilege of Youth. It's a book that really makes you think about resilience, forgiveness, community, and ultimately the power we all have within us
Right.
to overcome challenges and create a life filled with meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
And I want you to really sit with this.
Okay.
If you could go back and tell your teenage self one thing,
Oh,
knowing what you know now, what would it be?
wow, that's a powerful question.
Right. It really gets to the heart to what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear your answers.
Okay.
Head over to our social media and share your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going.
It's always inspiring to hear what resonates with our listeners.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into The Privilege of Youth. It's a story that challenges us, inspires us, and reminds us of the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
And as Pelzer so eloquently demonstrates, even in the face of incredible adversity, there's always hope and there's always the possibility of creating a beautiful, meaningful life.
Until next time, keep diving deep and remember kindness matters.
Yes.
Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. You never know the impact you might have.